Alright, so this is certainly going to be the longest video, but I'm going to do my best once again to get through it exceptionally fast. So, video game reviews. Let's get right into the images. So, our task was to review a game, but obviously I knew what we were doing. We wanted to see how everyone was reviewing games, and so I just wanted to immediately start thinking about the different types of reviews. You know, you have your detailed reviews where they separate every little thing in the game, or maybe set like chunks of the game into categories, or maybe you have like a more minimalist review where it just kind of organically talks about it and talks about like the experiences that really popped out to them when they were playing it. And then another idea is thinking about objective versus opinion. So trying to, like, how can you keep the game or the game review as objective as possible, and how do you do the opposite of that, where you have a lot of opinion in the review? Like, you just have to think about that balance. It's very interesting thinking about how that can change over time with the review, and just how our perception is of reviews and all that. I don't know. And then different scores, different types of scores. No score, percentage score, score out of a number, and then a word score maybe. So yeah, when it came to making the designs and the diagrams, so I have this in Adobe XD. I'd actually run it in prototype view, so then you can see what it would actually look like, which is more like a website kind of scroller. So you'd scroll through it like this. You know, the game I chose was Psychonauts, but I didn't actually go into reviewing it. I just wanted to split up. I used this as like a kind of a base template idea, just to think of like, what are the different elements of a game? How do I split up the game into different things? Because that was what I immediately go to, is just splitting up the game into different pieces that you can kind of look at and kind of compare and score on their own. Maybe a little score up here. I actually don't agree with this. Having the score at the very beginning, I feel like kind of ruins the whole. It might ruin your whole conception of everything afterwards. After like this might have influenced how you read everything after. I don't know. But yeah, I have like the main branch of story, and then within story we have sub branches, subcategories: plot, writing, and then maybe there's like a little score for each little section here: plot, writing, themes, characters, emotions. There's a lot. Gameplay, that's the next big branch. Then you dive into gameplay, mechanics, interactions, the feel of the controls themselves, the variety in the gameplay, the uniqueness of the gameplay. Is it another Call of Duty, or is it something more unique, like maybe Until Dawn, I guess, because like or Heavy Rain. Those games are a little bit more unique, kind of, in how they are done when it comes to their interactive experiences. That's just a really quick example. Challenge, difficulty, navigation, exploration. There's so many. Graphics / visuals, so just like the visual art style, so how the game looks, basically. Animations kind of go in there for sure as well. Sound effects, so audio, all the audible stuff in the game. Maybe, and then this is kind of interesting, sound effects and music. I would put sound effects and music. So the way I did this first, and then I did another branching. I think I did a thing where I showed all the branches, kind of, and I changed up how this is done, I'm pretty sure, where it's like it's from sound. You have sound, and then you have sound effects and music. And then maybe overall stuff. So this is like stuff that applies to everything. So you got like bugs and stuff like that, and maybe the length of the game, the replay value of the game, maybe the intensity of the game. This is very specific in my opinion, actually. So I might not even include that. Expectations of the game, who's the game for? So asking questions. There were a lot of asking questions, comparisons. You can compare it to other games. I think that's fine. I don't know any specific examples where that might be an issue. Just comparing games to one another that are similar. What is the game trying to be? Just all these different questions: tone, atmosphere, and then the conclusion, of course. So like I like this idea of the conclusion. When you're doing a conclusion, talk about the best highs, talk about the exciting parts, talk about the boring parts, talk about your opinions, of course. It's all opinion based. Your final thoughts and the final verdict / score / reasoning. And then we get over to here. This is just the same thing, except the background is different. And then we get to this. This took quite a bit of time because I actually had this all perfectly aligned in terms of these circles. So I wanted everything to be perfect in terms of its alignment and all that. So yeah, made sure everything was perfected in that sense in terms of layout and organization and sizing and all that and coloring, and yeah. So you have these 4 main branches together for the game: story, gameplay, visual, sound, and then it branches out into these things. Story can branch out into these, and the way they're connected is definitely intentional. Story branches out into cinematics, plot, voicing, acting, but then from plot, you go out to writing and pacing and all these other things. Gameplay, you go out to overall gameplay, and then you go to everything else afterwards. And the way you go from like this one over to this one kind of makes sense. You know, go to interactions, then you go to mechanics, and then you go to the challenge. These are definitely supposed to be related to one another as you go down the line. Visuals, kind of all just right here together. Sound, obviously, again, music, effects, sound effects. And then from music and sound effects, you got style and all these other things around. Music just has the soundtrack and score right here. That makes sense. And effects go to style, and then from style, you know, realism, elevation, fit, variety, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was my video game reviews diagram stuff. And once again, I could have just turned that in. I could have been done with it. I could have just done this right here, which is what I did. I could have just done this and turned it in. But I wanted to do this. I wanted to make it. I wanted to make this little thing that shows that. That took some time for sure. And then I wanted to take it a step further. I just all of a sudden had a spark of passion to make a video essay. So I wrote, and we'll go ahead and close this because we're done with that. I went ahead and I wrote a video review essay, or a video game review, an essay on video game reviews. So it's definitely a good size. It's 3,000 words. It's 6 pages, and it equated to a 15-minute video. It's more like 10 minutes, kind of, if you don't include the gameplay segments that I cut to. But yeah, it's kind of like a 10 to 20 minute gameplay, or 10 to 20 minute video essay, but turned into about 15 minutes because of editing and all that. So yeah, you can definitely read through this. I break it up into main parts. I didn't use that. I was gonna have this disclaimer right at the beginning of the video, but I completely didn't remember to include that. That's funny. But yeah, introduction. I liked this idea of just starting with a question. I always do that. What makes a good game? And then I have like all of this memorized in my head now at this point because I've just heard it and I've said it so many times. That's what the life of an editor is like, though. So yeah. And then I get into review methods. I talk about review methods, and I have some references, some really good references. You know, Game Informer with Ben Hansen and Joe Juba, who is the reviews editor. And then we have Kind of Funny Games, I think, for the scoring methods over here. Kind of Funny with their Kind of Funny Games cast. And that's another reference. And I had a couple other references like Video Game Donkey and Conan O'Brien when it came to like parodying scoring methods or score systems that were like out of 10, for example. And then I have a conclusion. And then I made this list of games for visuals. That's kind of funny, but I didn't actually use this list. And I will quickly, so now in conjunction, we'll open up so this is my main project, and I could spend quite a lot of time here, and I'm going to try to cover everything I can, though. So yeah, like I was saying, games for visuals. I didn't use this. I didn't want to record my own gameplay, of course. That would take a really long time, and I wanted it to be various. I wanted it to have a lot of variety. So I was like, hey, let's just go to each E3 and download all the official gameplay demos and trailers that were shown at E3, and then just get them from the official publishers' websites. Or YouTube channels and stuff like that. So I have a game media folder right here, and this thing's huge. I could spend 10 minutes talking about this. But of course I'm not going to do that. So organizing this took quite a bit of time. If we look at the size, I think it's like it might be 60 gigs or something like that. 47 gigs, 48 gigs of game media here that I can just import into Premiere, and then I can use it to really make it a little bit easier to cut between really different and unique from each other footage of gameplay. So that was really cool, but I had to find a way of organizing that. So we'll just open this with code, and it opens up on my other monitor because I was using it on my other monitor as I was editing. But yeah, So I would keep track of like game media already used. This is how I would keep track of things in the video. And as we're talking about this, let's go ahead and open up the Premiere project itself. We have to open up the Recover project because we had like a little issue with Premiere at one point. I had to make a Recover version. So yeah, game media already used. This is how I kept track of the games that were cut to in the gameplay footage as I was talking about my video essay. As I was doing my video essay. Look at that. I'm so proud of this. We'll get to that. So this is, yeah, just making sure that, oh gosh, I just realized it's going to be loud. So, there we go. We'll turn it down to like negative 30. How's that? They mention anything unless they feel that they need to. Okay. So for me, those are the two main methods of reviewing. Okay, so now let's get back to this. Game media used, and then I had game media used twice. So I was trying to keep track of like things I was using multiple times because I didn't want to cut to too much of the same thing multiple times. Then we have gameplay demos, which is me keeping track of all the games that I had demos for. So like because I wanted long-term segments of gameplay gameplay without cuts like a trailer would have, because I think that ruined the flow a little bit. That ruins the flow a little bit when it comes to just watching something and it's cutting, but I don't want it to cut where it's cutting. I want it to cut where I tell it to cut. And so yeah, that's why I had these long-term gameplay demos listed out. And then these stars were just me, adding importance to some of the ones near the end of editing that I wanted to include because I was running out of clips, or running out of amounts of clips to use. Like, I only have 3 clips left to use, or 3 spots I can use 3 clips. So which one am I going to use? Am I going to use this one, or this one? And then these dashes right here just indicate how many times I used that footage. Yeah, and this is a very accurate representation, but that's only for gameplay demos. This does not include everything. This is only for the games that had gameplay demos. And then I did a little list of gameplay cinematics and trailers, but I realized that using those isn't super nice when it comes, because like I said about the cutting, I don't want it to cut when I'm talking. I want it to cut when I want it to cut. And a lot of these trailers don't have long sections of uncut stuff in them. And then I was using background music from Donnie Darko. I love the Donnie Darko score. I've listened to a lot of scores in the past, and I like that one a lot. So that one just randomly popped in my head. I was like, oh yeah, I'll use that, and it worked very well. I edited quite a bit of footage to the music, which was really cool. I'm really proud of that, and I'll show that off really quick. So yeah, this was me keeping track of which ones I used with these dashes, and then also just telling myself which ones are what in terms of like vocals and piano and ambient intensity and all that. This was me figuring out which interview I wanted to use for the starting bit. I was looking at different interviews, which is actually that's kind of another story a little bit. But yeah, I was looking at different interviews from an E3 Coliseum panel, I believe. Different interviews for different games, like Telling Lies, for example. That was another one. There were some other ones too. I just don't remember them right now. And then this was me. So this is me. Wow, this feels like so long ago, but it was like, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago actually. But yeah, this is me keeping track of E3s and the games from each E3 that I wanted to get gameplay from. So I would actually go to e3recap.com or whatever it is for every year, and then I would go through it, and I would select the games that I felt like I would want to cut to, or felt like games that were interesting to me that I've always found interest in. So, and then I would go through each year, and I would get this list of games, and then I would go to YouTube, and I would get the gameplay footage or trailer or whatever it was that they were showing at E3 that year, and I would download it. And just downloading it took a whole day because there's a lot of footage I had to download. I had to download 50 gigs of footage, and that took an entire day just to download the footage. So yeah, and that's enough of that, I feel like. And now we get into the real nitty-gritty of this video game reviews essay. So I really like how I organized this. I'll full screen this little panel right here. I have I never used this view before, but it was necessary to use this view when I had so much stuff right here to organize and look through. So this is how I would look through, get the gameplay. I'm not gonna get super detailed. You know, I would get the gameplay. I'd double click. You know, it would bring it up in my source monitor right here. I would go to the part of the gameplay that I wanted, and then I would use my I and my O keys, and then I would drag the footage onto the timeline. And that's how I did it. So we'll just... And there's a lot, yeah. For sure, for sure. This is my favorite thing, though, just looking at the finished product right here with, you know, the timeline. Look at this. This is a thing of beauty for an editor to look at the finished timeline. And it's funny, there's some nested sequences, so it's not as terrible with its video layers. Yeah, there's only 6 right here, but there would be a lot more if I didn't nest some things. But yeah, I love, this is my favorite. This is one of my favorite things right here, is just seeing the audio smoothly fade and transition between all these different audio tracks right here. This is my gameplay audio track. So all the gameplay stuff when I cut to gameplay, my music 2 and music 1 for when I'm fading between different music tracks, and then my narration. And my narration, it's, yeah. Oh, there's so much to talk about. My narration right here. As you can see, like, hey, Sean, why are there so many cuts in your narration? Isn't it all in one audio clip? Yeah, it was. But I wanted to make it very, very, very professional. So I went in and I removed dead space, or just like breathing. I removed little segments as much as I could for when I was like taking pauses and breaths. And natural essay. This is when reviewers let their... So I cut it to be shorter, and I did that a lot, as you can see. Cutting the narration, just cutting this narration track right here with all these cuts right here that I'm highlighting over. Just doing this cutting took like 12 hours to do. That's separate from editing it, or separate from recording it and writing the essay and all that. You know, this is a huge project that took a lot of time, and I highlight that at the end here. I estimated about 120 hours of total work in 35 days from May 11th to June 14th. I do that with my video essays now, even though this is only my second video essay. But yeah, I kind of took that idea from my last video essay that I did last year, which is around actually a year ago, which is very funny. But yeah, I love the way it just intros. There's so much to talk about, man. So much. Man, yeah. The way, like, for example, right here, when I do, the way I do timing with my voice. So when I know it sounds like a really stupid question, and it probably is, but really ask yourself, what makes that game... So when I said, what makes that game good, I cut to Witcher gameplay right here, as you can see. So, but really ask yourself, what makes that game good? Here, let me turn it up a little bit. -10. That should be good. Go. Really ask yourself, what makes that game good? What? And so, this is an interesting thing to know, is that you hear faster than you see. There's a small delay, or you at least you can hear things faster than you can see, basically. And you can look that up, and it's true from what I've looked at. So, I have the visual cut in sooner than the audio, because that's how it works. You're going to see this. You're actually going to see this and hear this around the same time because of how we hear things faster than we see. So we can go, what I do is I go right to the point where the audio starts, like this, right there, boom. And then I hold shift and I go left arrow twice. So that brings me back 10 frames, which is a sixth of a second. 10 frames at a 60 frames per second video. So I went back 2 times, which is 2 10 frames. Oh, wait, no, sorry, 2 5 frames. See, this is 5 frames right here. Then I go back again. So there's a total of 10 frames out of 60 frames. So sixth of a second, I go back. And then I do the cut to the video. So what makes that game good? And I feel like that fits very well. So that rule, that's kind of like a rule I developed. And I did that for every cut here, as you can see. So we'll just watch for like a couple seconds. You can see every single time I change sentence, or I feel like I need to cut to a new thing, I cut to a new thing right before, 10 frames before I start talking. That game good. Why did I enjoy that so much? Why did I hate this? Think about the different elements that, and there's some really cool, when you're doing this kind of editing too, there might be some nice happy accidents that happen when you're editing. And here's a good example of so let's do a quick little example of how I cut to gameplay, and this is my favorite thing. So like, it's funny, I don't know, I want to make it as professional as possible, so I don't just cut to gameplay. I want to fade in the gameplay, obviously, but a lot of even more professional outlets or whatever channels like IGN won't do this really. They'll just cut the gameplay audio in. They don't fade it in. So obviously what's happening is here is I'm fading out my narration, I'm fading out my music, and I'm fading in the gameplay. And the way I'm doing it with these timings is all a rule that I've developed. This is a 2-second fade for the music. And then this is, it's actually been such a long time since I did these fades that I don't remember, but there was a specific way I did this fade. It might be 1 second, it might be 1.5 seconds or something like that specifically. This is a 2-second fade, and then this right here is a 2-second fade right here. And let me bring down the audio a little bit more, just because it hurts my ears when I scrub and it plays the audio like that. But yeah, as you can see right here, look at this, it lines up. Right when I start to fade out my narration, I fade in the gameplay. But the music is still fading out because I have the music end right here. I think I changed the rule later on. I think I might have the music fade or end fading halfway through this fade right here. So those like little rules help me keep things consistent when it comes to editing things. So yeah, we'll just listen to this and you can kind of see that music fades out, my narration fades out, and the gameplay fades in. And then the gameplay will, get to its loudest volume that I allow it to, and then I fade it out, and then I fade new music in. And then I have my narration start with the video cutting. So this is all just the details of video editing, and I am very, very, very precise when it comes to this kind of stuff because I love it. It's very time consuming though, so you have to keep that in mind. It's a lot of work. And what it has to offer, it might be the most normal way to review a game. So audio faded in, audio fades out. The second part of this method, and then I cut to new gameplay and I start talking again. So yeah, I guess I'm just going to give you that little taste really quickly before I end this little taste of editing. We have some graphics here, and these graphics are very time consuming as well because I want them to be perfect. I mean, look at this one right here. These scores didn't represent. So I do a crop. I do a crop right here, a crop animation. So I crop him up. I think he might be even zooming in a little bit here. Yeah, so he's slowly zooming in a little bit or expanding. And then I crop him down and time that with the crop transition of the IGN logo. And that's how it turns out in the final product. It looks good. As he pointed out, was that these scores didn't represent him. They represented IGN. I feel like I love that so much. It just makes it look so much more professional. And then this right here, fading the audio in for the podcast seamlessly with the video that you're currently watching.
Versus where it was when I...
Let me bring that back here. Nowadays, they're no longer like this anymore.
Versus where it was when I...
See that? How I just immediately faded in and we get right into it seamlessly. And then these graphics right here, I have the 9, and then I animate the 2 in, and then I animate the 3 in. That's all keyframed, animated in. I did that all manually, of course. It's not just a pre-baked thing that I told it to do. I did it all myself. And then obviously you can tell right here when this graphic animates in, entertainment company that creates, and it's moving its position. There's a crop on it, but it's moving its position outside that crop so then it's visible. That's how I do a lot of my graphic animation stuff, and that's how I've always done it. But I might learn. I have to learn some new methods eventually, of course. But yeah, as you can see, that's not the only thing that's happening. This is blurring in the background, so I have to go into this effect controls, and I'm telling it right here to start blurring with these keyframes. Then I tell it to stop blurring, of course. And I always use an ease in, ease out. And then really quickly I can show how I do... Wait, these are nested though. The way I do easing is very interesting. I'll basically make it so that it really eases in and eases out slowly. Or... I'm trying to remember how I do it. Let me just let's look really quick. So yeah, as you can see, I have it ease. I add easing to all of these frames, but then I drag this dot over, so then it makes it so that it speeds in a little bit faster and has a smooth transition. So let's look at that. See, look at that. It eases in faster at the beginning, and then it smoothly goes out, and then it does the same thing again in reverse. And that's how I do my easing. But yeah, there's a lot of details like that in this editing that I just can't touch on everything. But this is just a little taste to show you how much work goes into a project like this, and I am extremely proud of it. There's some things here and there that I would like to change, but it is definitely in a very finished state, which is awesome. And I just love a lot of it. I'm so happy with it. I cannot wait to post it online, maybe put it on Reddit, try to spread it out there, get some reception, get some feedback. I'd love to get feedback on it. I'm going to show my friends, see what they think about it. Very happy, very excited with it. Yeah. If you have any questions or anything like that for me to talk about, I'd love to answer them. There's so much here, obviously, to talk about. So yeah, thank you very much.